So it was changed because my father decided that after the war, Margulies would be clearly Jewish name, and even it was after the war, he preferred cut Jewishness completely, forget about it, because Poland was dangerous. There were still pogrom in Kielce, etc. So he decided to finish with Jewishness. I didn't even know he changed in the État civil. Margulies is completely erased. I was officially now written, I was born as Tomasz Pietrzykowski. I was shocked because I was a little boy, he didn't tell me.
And so, can you tell me how was the life, if you remember something before the war, from 34 to 40? Do you have some memories?
Oh, yes.
What kind of family, what kind of life you had?
Let's say, a kind of bourgeoisie, but not the grand bourgeoisie. It was not the small, not like shopkeeper. My father was co-owner and director of wool, making wool, I don't know how to say it in English, wool, what you make material from. There was this fact that it was family business. There were all sorts of co-owners, but he was a director, and they didn't have anything to do with this factory. And he was director and loved by even workers. He was very, very dutiful and decent man.
And it was a Jewish factory or not at all?
No. Jews were not workers.
Oh.
No. It was factory of my grandfather, and then he didn't manage. He was an expert in, and my father was very rare thing, educated in Belgium in Polytechnique, which was specialized in fabrics.
And your mother, how many children were you? Your mother was taking care of the family.
Well, no, not much of a family. I had only one sister.
And older sister or younger sister?
Younger, after the war.
Ah, yes, you were alone. So all that time you were the only child.
Only child.
They did not want any children?
Well, I don't know, before they probably, maybe they wanted, but the war started, and that was the last thing people wanted to have, the children.
And so you had a happy life before the war?
Very happy. Happy is a relative thing. My parents were doing very well.
And do you had a Jewish religion?
No, they were atheists.
Ah, yes?
Agnostics or atheists. They didn't have any religion.
And you did not do your bar mitzvah, you were not...
I knew that I am theoretically something called Jew, but I wasn't clear. I was up to 5 years what it is. I never was in synagogue. I never knew really what it is. Only after German entered, I had to have because all the Jews have to have with David Star thing.
Where was it? It was
in wood still.
It was on the arm. You had to.
Oh, everybody Jew had on the arm when we was on the street
Yeah.
where this.
And did you get
Then they told me that's because we are Jewish.
you had your Brit Milah when you were a baby?
But me, I was circumcised.
Yes. So they were doing the minimum.
The minimum, absolutely, probably for my grandparents.
They were both religious from
No,
both sides?
my grandfather was probably also atheist, but grandmother was quite religious.
On which side? Your mother or your father?
My mother. I know very little about my father's family. They all perished, all, no trace, no. There was no Polish, so very important sociologist in one of the department of Academy of Science, and she specialized in the Jews. So she found me and interviewed me for a long time to get, and I was talking with her and asked to find any documents, because she has access to all the documents about my father family. No trace.
And they had the same family name. This family name was
Margulies.
Yeah, Margulies, and that has disappeared totally. Yeah.
And my father didn't want to talk about it.
And he had brother and sisters.
My father, oh yeah, he has two sisters.
And
Everybody disappeared.
And
Not disappeared. Everybody who goes to Oświęcim or Auschwitz.
And
They stayed in Łódź, in ghetto, and all Łódź ghetto was this, nobody who survived. No, not nobody, but very few.
very few, very few. And so probably your parents got married at the synagogue, because that also was the minimum. Their wedding.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
They didn't. It was not talked. Not that it was anything, but the religion was, my mother considered it zabobon. I use Polish word, prayer, some storytelling.
And so when did you see the changes? When the German arrived, you were 6 years old, something like that? 5 years old.
Exactly.
When is your birthday?
A day after or day after, before my birthday.
When was it?
39.
Yes, but which date? Which date?
When they arrived. No, you can find it on Google in which, but I don't remember.
But your birthday, when are you born? Which date?
In December, September 13.
Yeah, so they arrived at that moment, more or less.
More or less.
Yeah.
It was beginning of the war,
Yeah.
which was taken without any defense.
And what happened to your family and you? You had to move. You were living in a house. What happened?
No, we had our own apartment. We didn't have to move yet, but particularly my mother knew, because she had experience with First War and Soviets, etc. So my father was naive. He couldn't believe that such a cultural nation, he knew Germans and no German, he couldn't believe it, that they will do what they did. So he wanted to be loyal to his worker, to his factory, to this thing. My mother wanted to get out of Poland, go to Romania and go to Argentina.
Yeah, she was more aware of the danger.
Yeah, because she was in Soviet Union, so you know already what means totalitarian regime.
She was Russian? She was born as a Russian or no?
No. Also she was born in Łódź.
And so
Or near Łódź, where was this factory, my grandfather have his, let's say, maison, big maison.
And when did you had to move? So at the beginning there were no much
We didn't
change.
have to move. We moved to Warsaw because idea was that Łódź will be part of Reich, and Warsaw was called general government. It was sort of, it was completely occupied, but theory would be safer for Jews to be there.
So you moved there?
Yeah, not long time ago, about months or two after.
And how was the life?
You mean before the war?
No, in Warsaw when you arrived.
Oh, it was lovely. We lived in Warsaw. We lived with my aunt, she was married to very wealthy industrialist, chemical industrialist, who was taken to Polish army as they make this all intelligentsia officers, and was in some oflag, but my aunt was supremely well known. She was a theatrical actress, and she knew all sorts of people, and we lived in luxurious apartment, much better than in our apartment in Łódź, because she was much richer.
What was her name?
Her name, well, who knows what is her name? She died as Isa de Neumann, but her birth name probably was Isa Lusternik.
She was a sister of your mother?
Yeah, older sister.
So what was their name? Lusternik?
Lusternik, that was the maiden name of my mother. Oh, and about Lusternik, she found a lot, this sociologist.
So at the beginning...
It was a big family. There was 8 children, one died very young, so it was 7 children in my mother's family side. So all I know is about my mother's side, I know a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She loves to talk about it.
And so how was the life? At the beginning it was okay when you went to Warsaw and living with your
Oh, it was
aunt?
great.
Yeah.
I remember going to lovely resto, cafes, and this and that. And then it wasn't in the beginning until so-called final solution, 42. Theoretically, you are supposed to go to ghetto, but you could live outside of ghetto. So we lived with our aunt for about a year, and then they rented part of the villa in a nice part of Warsaw. So life was extremely good.
And your family had blonde hair, or you were...
Why I have blonde hair, I suspect something happened somewhere. They were laughing because I was, that were people who knew as I was a child, as a Jew. Who will believe you're a Jew? You look like Hitler, you get. I had blue eyes and white, ideal Aryan.
Yeah, some children were stolen when they looked too good. For them.
Oh, I was even better. I looked like German.
But your parents had dark hair. They didn't look like...
Different. My father had dark hair. My mother had reddish hair. Reddish brown. On my mother's side, nobody would recognize that they are Jews.
That was helpful at that time.
Well, not helpful, was critical. because we didn't get. But you wanted before the war something, or you are not interested?
Yes, if you remember something before the
I
war.
remember fragments. First fragment of my life is we went to the sea for vacation, and my memory smell, not visual, smell of the deck of the boat. They took some tourist boat. I remember this smell of sea and thing. I remember various smells. And I remember too when my older cousin, her bar mitzvah, I didn't know what bar mitzvah is, but it wasn't religious, it wasn't in any synagogue, it was at home, and their home, and everybody wanted to show. I remember I was dressed its best and recited long poem, and was clapping. That's my memory.
Nice.
It was a very nice childhood. I only supposed to have one very bad, because they were on the level that my mother always have a servant, but for me they have also separate kind of nanny, and she was apparently bad.
But you don't remember,
No, it was stories.
Okay.
Which I remember.
And did you see a change in the ghetto after when in 1942 when
we were not in ghetto. We will be not talking.
Yes. So when did you escape the ghetto?
We didn't. We went. It was idea. Let's try ghetto, because we were outside of ghetto and living okay. Well, okay, because Polacks didn't live okay either. So once my father, just in tramway, Germans. I'm sorry, nobody used the word Nazis or Hitlers. No, it was Germans. So I can now start be politically correct. Germans. What?
Yeah, you're right.
No,
it was like that.
There were good Germans and bad Germans, but they were Germans. That's what it was. So Germans arrested, took Polacks, everybody could be, you could be French, could be anybody. The whole people who were in tramway put to the jail, part and part let go, randomly, just to terrorize, to fear, so people could be afraid of them. So that was before ghetto, his moment, which I remember, my mother was extremely fear what happened with him, and suddenly he arrived, released.
And
but then we decided to go for a ghetto. We lived with some family, which I don't know what. Life was suddenly very different because we were squished in them. One of those old big Warsaw apartments, because Germans are randomly part of Warsaw, they say that's ghetto. There was no particular Jews there. There was no Jewish area in Warsaw, they were spread. So we were in this ghetto. My two memories I have from the ghetto. One, I have a canary who flew through the window and I was heartbroken. And second, we were walking in the street and I see there are people lying on the trottoir covered with newspapers. I asked, who are they? So somebody who was my mother, father, or somebody So, well, that's people who died from hunger and froze during the night. Then I had a little taste what this whole thing is. But my parents quickly decided to leave ghetto. There was the whole system. There were Polacks who arranged, who paid. They were not shysters. Sorry, I'm using this Jewish word, but now it's in Polish, in every language. They were paid and they did their job. They were in the old, Warsaw were old houses, and there are, you know, like, how do you call it? Not basement, cellars, huge cellars, and they were connected. So they make breaks between cellars, and through these cellars, like tunnels, under the wall or wherever was thing, you were going on. It was called. I will use this language which was used on Aryan side, and there was somebody waiting for us, probably my aunt. And we went to little town called Opatów Kielecki, where brother of my mother, which I didn't know, I learned now from this lady in Poland, he was incredibly just considered a hero. There was German allowed at that time in this little town. There was no ghetto there because there were only Jews in this town. There were little town in Poland, hardly any Polacks lived. And so we lived outside of the town, but there was called Judenrat. It was, they are getting some money to help other Jewish community. And he was manager of this supposed useless uncle Max was a leader of this thing, and he hired my father, who was checking if the monies, they don't steal, they don't make something, if the monies are well spent.
So even when you were in this village, you had the sign?
Oh, no. We didn't say. Nobody asked question and nobody knew anything. In this, in this village, they knew that we are Jews, but it wasn't wasn't a big deal. So there are Jews who are in the city who are doing, and I saw this woman. It was like going to some at least century back, in perucas, and going in the Friday to this big stove to bake hawas and this kind of thing, which was quite for me as a child interesting. But we were in this town because my uncle, this Max, married daughter of some person, some family from the town, and she decided to be, it's called in Poland, it was completely wanted to be assimilated, to learn good Polish, go to Polish schools, etc. That most of the Jewish intelligentsia was like. But my uncle was they were part of my family, were Zionists, but it is completely different than now. It was supremely idealistic, and they wanted to go to this land. And my uncle was poet, so he translated the most famous 19th century epopee, Polish epopee into Hebrew.
Nice.
But it is lost. She was searching for it, but was burned probably.
They survived also, this brother and...
That's a different story, which you probably, maybe if you know a little bit about Polish, my nightmare, there in 43, a Jew and the very high Gestapo officer, you know, with money you could do anything. This Jew made a deal with this German. They made fake passports, fake American passport and Palestinian passport. No, there was no Israel, it was Palestine. And they say that they will go to these camps for foreigners, which Germans was tough, but you could live there. So people pay enormous money to get this passport, and they were all put into a luxurious hotel. But from this hotel they went to Auschwitz and Treblinka. So that's where big part of my family perished. This aunt, this supremely smart aunt, who loved me, like she didn't have any children, but she loved me as her child. She saved me because she arranged the people who were keeping me. She arranged papers for my father and my mother. She had contact with underground, which was very important because part of underground was helping Jews, part was neutral and part was anti-Jews. But she had connection everywhere, so she arranged, I don't know what I am now talking, but I'm sorry if it is not chronological. When 42 came, most intelligent people knew it is the end, because he declared final solution. So surprising in ghetto, other ghettos were all sent straight to Auschwitz, Treblinka and Majdanek. There were 3 main camps. They didn't have stoves there, they just killed. In Treblinka also they burned. So I remember that because I was quite not really aware, but I was an intelligent boy. My mother was reading. We lived quite well in this village. My father was working. They have some money, which they converted into gold, and you could sell gold. So we were living decently, and my aunt came and said, end of this idyll, you have to go, Polish passport, you have to spread, you can't live as a family, it's too dangerous, because everybody will be gone. So my mother got some paper, my father was this Pietrzykowski, and I was Marian Skroczak.
Where did you go?
I went, my aunt found family near Warsaw in a little town called Pruszków, which is apparently now much bigger, and she found some family, and you paid, and they were rather simple people. Well, there was money arrangement, but they started liking me and loving me. So it was I had a quite good life there. Too good, because my chocha, auntie, I was very skinny. I didn't like to eat, and she forced me to eat. That was the nightmare. Not that I was ever hungry. I was eating. I have to learn Polish prayers, Polish this, Polish that, and went to school. Before I didn't go to school.
Ah, yes? You had school at home?
Yeah, my father and mother were teaching me. And they didn't know anything about schools in Poland. So they got something and they taught me too much. So I was supposed to go to second class. So they put me to the third, but this teacher said he knows too much. So they put me to the fourth class. And I was little and small, which was not a convenient thing to be in the boys' school and be small.
And what did the family say? That you were a nephew, or?
They didn't know anything. They were dumb. I invented it, everything.
What did you say to them?
I said I'm a nephew. Then this aunt have a family, because they have a library, which they never read, but I read all the Polish history, etc. There was some sect made in 17th century, which nobody already knew. I said that my mother and father were members, and Germans killed them, and I am nephew of these people. And they liked it. There was a story. There was they were very proud of me that I'm so smart.
And how long did you stay in the family?
I would be staying till the end of the thing, but one of their nephews had a great fight with this, I call him uncle. Nothing to do with me, but he was, fight. I would go to Germany and say that you keep Jewish child. It was death penalty for not me, but for them too. Whoever kept Jew, knowing that they're Jews, was go also to Auschwitz, or was killed, rather, shot. And after the war, this man came on my knees and cried that he would never do that. But even saying it was too dangerous. So, and my aunt was unavailable, so this chocha was finding me various places. So I was here, a few days here, a few days there. The longest and the best, she put me to for orphans, for girls orphans in Catholic, place. Oh, they knew that I'm a Jew, and when I was a boy, I had a great time there with playing with these girls and everything, but I couldn't stay there too long because boys shouldn't be there. So they put me to two sisters, and it was a very unhappy place because they were not nice people to start with, and they have one of the horrific boyfriend. He wasn't physically abusing me, but he was cruel, a sadist. So he verbally was telling, you live here and your parents are on the seventh shelf of Schicht. Schicht was soap produced. Because
So they knew very well.
Of course, they got money for it. Of course they knew. But then she found another, or already with my aunt, found some teacher in another little town near Warsaw. And there I had a great time because the teacher was still in the school and in the underground. So I was already 9. I was cooking for both, going shopping, cooking, and my only dream was, you know what, to be grown and to join underground and kill Germans.
And you had no news from your parents?
My mother got caught by so-called, now they are called szmalcowniks. They were called in Polish szantażyści. Chantage, it is like in French. And they were getting Jews and give me money, otherwise I will get you to the Gestapo. And they were honest and dishonest. Honest, when they got money, they could even help you. But my mother they were looking for my aunt. She was a prize. But my aunt had various apartments, moved, never stayed more than 2 days. And in one apartment was my mother and sister, wife of this Max. They were there, and this szmalcowniks came, took money and brought us to Gestapo. And went to the concentration work camp. But my mother, excuse me, it's pretty emotional. And my aunt, let's call her Iza, because that's what her name. Her name was at that time Iza Faleńska, which is very Polish, and it was her, name in theater, so she was using this name. She organized from underground a person who got in touch with my mother, and when they were going from the camp to factory to work, Germans were looking, not looking, could be late, to go to the ditch and stay there, and he was around, he took my mother and brought her to Warsaw, and again, newspapers, she was Kowalska, Kozłowska, I don't know, various false, original papers. You pay somebody, and he gave papers and was saying, I lost it, etc. There was no computers, so they were original good papers. So women were in better shape because they were not, men.
Yeah, it was easy to prove that you were a Jew.
That was obvious. But I knew when my school was going to the, they were taking to the public washing places, because, not everybody had bathroom, so the children to be kind of clean. So I have a terrible headache, I have to go home.
Yeah, you have never been. It was too dangerous. You knew that, huh?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, because once I have some irritation, some sort of fungi or something, and there was need of a doctor, and it could be death or life, but they risked. Doctor came, He looked, he prescribed medicine. We happened, he was decent. It was
Yeah.
luck of the draw.
Yeah. To
And
survive.
how could you know?
Yeah, it was really like
One big Hollywood movie. Because I saw this two Hollywood movies. One about this Schindler List, except they did this Jews were speaking with beautiful Polish accent, which no Jew will speak, but Schindler, it was American, he didn't know anything about really what Jews were all about, Polish Jews. He didn't know. It was, this movie is complete fiction. I mean, there was a Schindler and it's factual, but you know what. And there was better movie by Polanski, who was a Jew. So he was like me. He was also in some Polish families,
Yes.
so he knew this thing equally well, or maybe better, a year older. And it was the
pianist, the
piano.
Pianist.
That was much more factual. That was not completely, I don't remember, things didn't happen like that. Well, it was a movie, but it was pretty factual, this piano. And this guy was real, this Spielmann. He became, communist. He was not as a Jew, but in radio, Spielmann was very important. My father, again, he survived. His story was, and no, I didn't finish. So my mother went to Warsaw, and she discovered some feminine thing, I think, some in matrix somewhere. She went to hospital for operation as a Polish person. She already had different papers, and she didn't look like a Jew. And they think we have good Polish accent.
Yeah.
My Polish was, and their Polish was undistinguishable. So that was extremely important.
The Jews, most of the Jews were speaking Yiddish, or they had
Intelligentsia, no.
No, but the people from simple Jews, they were
Yiddish.
They did not speak Polish.
They knew Polish, but they didn't. Between themselves, they speak usually Yiddish. It was like two different worlds. The simple Jews who lived as a Jews, going to synagogue and eating kosher and everything, and the intelligentsia who, before the war, the Polish government wasn't fascist, but was very anti-Semitic. Because before there was this Polish hero, he has a Jewish wife, so he, of course, nobody touched Jews. But then he died and took by some officers, and there was no one. But I know that one of my uncles was studying chemistry and polytechnic, and Jews were supposed to sit separately or stand. So whole his study was standing. He didn't want to give in to this anti-Semitic thing. So Jews, before the war, the Hitler penetrated already everything. The army was penetrated, everything was. But anyway, my mother and this ciocia Litka, I said, you will see your mother. And I was dressed elegantly and have bouquet of lilies of the valley. And we came. It was a very nice hospital again by some sisters. And we were sitting in a nice garden, and my mother lost weight and looked so beautiful. And I was saying, Dzień dobry pani, madame, flowers. And when nobody saw, I kissed her. And then it was horrible. I said, maybe it was the last time. That was really dramatic, because she looked so beautiful in this garden with this convallia and crying. But this Polish woman was a hero. Because finally I was in this woman, and my parents reunited. My father worked for some German company, and again was a good German.
I know.
Nobody said a word, but he knew that there are Jews working there. So he, like in this movie, went to Germany to find him. He couldn't. So anyway, we were reunited, went to this German company was, pushed.
Which year? It was still...
Oh, it was 44.
Yeah.
Wait a second, 44. It was July 44. The Russians were pushing quickly, so because the company was on Ukraine, and they were pushed, and they were already in the kind of middle of the Poland, and somehow, how it is different. I mean, there was no phone, no nothing, but it was some private people could get your letter. I was too small to know, and unfortunately nobody wrote good books about it. It's gone. The best known is this Polish professor.
The woman?
Oh, she's in Warsaw.
Yeah.
She's called Engelking, but it's not Jewish. In Poland, during Reformation, lots of Lutherans. Poland was extremely liberal country. They escaped from Germany to Poland, and this was this Polish king who invited Jews, etc. So I know that king is this, but what is Engel? She said, it's what is big bird which flies? Eagle. So she was from some very high level, probably German family from 17th century. And she was all about all this nasty thing Polacks did to Jews. So I say, you will be, we use the word, like, I didn't call professor, and she didn't call me professor. I called Basia, and she called me Tomek. I said, Basia, you will, because in Poland there is a law that if you say that Polacks did anything bad to Jew, you can be accused and go to jail. They obviously don't do it, but law exists. So they threaten her that they will get. So I said, are you going to European court? Oh yes, I am ready. All papers are prepared.
When did she wrote things?
What?
She wrote some things about the war and everything.
She wanted to write a book about my family.
Ah, yeah.
That's what she was collecting
Yeah,
information.
and she did not do it?
Or maybe she is doing it right
nice.
now.
That would be nice.
I see. When I lost I can't make
You
emails,
can write. Yeah.
write, pen, anything. So I'm losing my precious connections. Anyway, my mother and father were in a place called Dębica, where this company was, and Litka brought me there. Litka is the name of the Ciocia Litka, was of this, what is original Polish family who took care of me, but she was taking care later, but not for any money, of course. And it was all so dangerous. Going to train you, German can come and check. It was like crazy. It wasn't like in France, because I had my family who survived in France.
You had some Polish family in France?
Yeah, one of my aunts she was an haute couture, and she went to Paris to new models and was caught by war. And I had some from other side, some uncle, and they got married, and they lived as paysans.
So they survived in France?
Oh yeah. You were so French as you could get, like Southern French, look like people from Nice with Italian nose, and walking and speak French. No, he didn't speak. He's Polish, very weak. They survive in Poland, and they have a very good life in France as a paysan.
And so, from this town, your family were reunited?
In Dębica, when we finally reunited, they decided not to wait, because the German was going further west. So we some connection in some little village away from everything, and hire somebody with horse, so he took all the luggage and us, and we went to this place and waited for Russians to come, for Soviets. And Soviets eventually came. It was like, particularly my mother speak perfect Russian, so she could do anything with them, because they were very simple people, and they didn't, and Polacks didn't like them, and they didn't like Polacks, and suddenly speak Russian to them. Oh, Majata, and they like children. Oh, rybionok. So I was with Soviet officers. I had good life there, because we lived later from this village we went to the bigger city, Soviet. And my father went already, which was liberated, and he went to work for government industry.
Yeah.
And
they knew he was Jewish.
Oh no, it was after the war.
But they knew, they didn't care anymore?
They knew they didn't. He was Pietrzykowski. There was no, at that time in the beginning, there was no anti-Semitism, because, no, both the right and left, no anti-Semitism. After this pogrom in Kielce, even Polacks were shocked about it. And I talked to with Polak who it was horrible because they went to their place where they lived, and suddenly came people with things and started killing them. It was true, unfortunately. It's not a propaganda.
Yeah.
They were true. And this Polish guy who is very Catholic, I talked with him. He organized with the help of the church, which is very anti-Semitic, there, that they do every year in the anniversary of pogrom, people go and cry on their knees and ask God for forgiveness. So you see, it never was black and white. What Americans want to do, everything is black and white. It was every shade of gray. Anyway, we went there and then was okay. My mother and I were in Rzeszów. What name I had? I was Marian Skroczak. And she was, I don't know, Zofia Kozłowska or something like that. But people knew better not to ask too many questions. Not because of Jews, because of Polacks with Polacks were having their horrors.
Yeah.
But it was only with Jews. So we lived there, and my father was already in Łódź and went and told these Germans to get out of the apartment, which they, because the Germans were there, so they came, in German way, they clean everything, was a crystal clean, everything was its place. Crystals were on the caplots, everything was there. Even my toys were there. So then we went to Łódź, and I was like nothing happened. Same apartment, everything the same. My father was in this government policy. He was a technical director of all the wool industry in Poland, so he had very good salary, good position. And then there was another horror, but that came from Stalin's side already, Hitler, that he was that was actually more dangerous than Germans for some people. Not Jews or not Jews, that didn't matter. He was considered capitalist, imperialistic spy. And the secret police, this KGB, it was different name. They could arrest you and say torture you until you confess.